No, and I'm being serious. I'm not being facetious.
Okay.
Just from the standpoint that women, you guys understand each other in ways that I as a male will never understand. I think it's critical for women to commune amongst themselves. To start.
The Girlfriend Getaway is a retreat that Jacqueline Campbell has put together in honor and in love for Black women. It is a retreat that is offering food, communion, love, laughter, and joy. She is carving out a space on October 2nd to the 9th for Black women to come together to the island of St. Martin and not only enjoy each other's company, but get poured into from a holistic standpoint. Black women have become the mule of the world, as Zora Neale Hurston put it. They have given to everybody else except themselves. And this is our moment to enjoy each other in our fullness, you know? So I'm so excited to be here sitting with a supporter of Black women, Delroy Lindo, and to talk about the importance and the priority that we need to place on health and wellness. Delroy, can I ask you, what was the shift that made you prioritize health and wellness within yourself?
What was the shift? There was no shift in as much as a young person, I was an athlete. Excuse me. I was born in England, and I played soccer, and I ran track and field. So I've always had that awareness of my body. As I became a young adult, I started swimming. I learned to swim when I was very, very young, but I soon found out as a young adult that swimming has so many health benefits that became one of the main exercises for me, swimming. And I would say that broadly speaking, I work in an industry in which so much is out of my control. My body is squarely in my control. So I do whatever I can to optimize my relationship to my own body and how I treat my body. And that includes what I eat, as well as exercising.
You know, as a woman, you know, it's hard to just make that shift into, you know, let me prioritize my health when
it is hard.
Our beauty is looked at as a external physical thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And oftentimes women want to get healthy to get skinny. Mm-hmm. So I'm asking you, you know, how do we make that mindset shift when there's so many external factors that come with it?
I think it starts with people such as yourself who understand the importance of health, understand that health, physical health, mental health is not necessarily connected to how we look per se. And I think somebody like yourself who can speak to as broad and wide a variety of people as possible, that's where it starts, because it's all about education. It's all about educating ourselves.
But food is comfort for a lot of people, especially within our community. You know, soul food is one of the things that brings us together during the holidays. It's one of the main times I see my family, you know, and it's fried foods, it's mac and cheese, it's yams, it's sugar, it's salt. So how do we change those habits?
I think it starts, now I have to say this. I've been known to eat fried chicken. I've been known to eat mac and cheese, okay? So I don't want to sit here and be hypocritical. However, I try to balance, okay? It's a question of balance. And I think, as with anything else, it starts with one's mental application. One has to decide for oneself that one wants to do this. One wants to make a change. One wants to make a shift. And that's where I feel it's really, really important. Communicating amongst ourselves. I also think what's occurring to me right now is that the more we can, as a community of people, the more we can discuss what our challenges are as far as our diet, as far as our looks, our physical selves, the more we can discuss those things amongst ourselves, perhaps we then start to come to terms with what some of those challenges are and how then we can start to negotiate those challenges for ourselves. Let me say one thing for myself. Many years ago, I this is before I was in school. I was in my early 20s, and I stopped eating meat. I stopped eating red meat. I stopped eating red meat. That happened for me as a result of going to hear Dick Gregory speak. And at that time, Dick Gregory was into not only vegetarianism, but he was also on the path to becoming actually vegan. And his philosophy really impacted me. So for myself, I made a decision at that, and this is going back to the early mid 1970s. And what I did was I took a year to gradually wean myself off of red meat, because I knew if I tried to do it immediately, it wouldn't work. So I guess I'm saying all of that to say we should give ourselves time. If we're talking about changing our eating habits, give yourself a realistic amount of time to change habits, because as we know, habits are very, very difficult to break. In my case, I gave myself a year to wean myself off of red meat, and I have not eaten red meat now since 1975.
I think there's an emotional connection to food, though.
No question.
A lot of us Black women, we self-sacrifice. This program is for Black women over 40, women who have dedicated their lives to their children,
right,
who have experienced microaggressions within society.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And food is a part of one of the only ways some women feel comfort. And there's a huge emotional thing there. So
Sure.
just kind of let that go is really hard
No
for
question.
some of us, because it's living in a world where we're constantly attacked through our subconscious, what I mean?
Sure.
It's, how do we tell that to a young mother who has to take 2 buses to go to work and take care of 3 kids and is just trying to survive?
I think the best person, or the best persons plural, to speak with a young mother, the young mother that has 2 kids and is just struggling to make ends meet, I think the best persons to speak with that young mother is another female. It's not a male. And I feel really strongly about that. I think that you guys, females, understand the dynamics that you're faced with. You understand the prejudices that you're faced with. You understand the struggles of what it means to negotiate your body. You understand that, females understand that far more acutely than any male, anytime. So I think the secret is women speaking, communing amongst themselves. Don't listen to the men.
And that's
I'm being serious. I'm not being facetious.
okay.
Just from the standpoint that women, you guys understand each other in ways that I as a male will never understand. I think it's critical for women to commune amongst themselves, to start to address some of the issues that you're referring to.
Yeah, and I think that's what the Girlfriend Getaway is about. That's
Amen.
What Jacqueline Campbell is trying to do. She's
Amen.
trying to build community. So many of us feel lonely, like we're struggling alone, or we feel like we're the only ones, with social media constantly displaying this image of happiness and fun everywhere. And to bring us together is so crucial and important. So I love that you said that.
I know that Jackie started the At the Well program for young people, young women. And I know that Toby Sanders, who's here with us, was responsible for starting the From the Fire summer programs for our young men and our young women. I think as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking that you should include in those programs with those young people a dietary component. Start speaking about those aspects of who we are and healthy living with the young people. And I think you perhaps have more of a chance of those young people speaking to other young people. And that's where the change can start.
Okay. Delroy, I know we don't have a lot of time here today, and I want to ask you one more question.
Sure.
I believe this conversation that we're having about health is directly tied to self-love.
No question.
You know, and I really feel that there's a part of ourselves that's deeply embedded that may not love ourselves fully, that might have been passed down. And my question to
Not
you,
might have been, has been passed down. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
My question to you is, how do we heal that part of ourselves, you know, that may have come from generational trauma and heal our bodies?
Well, I think it's a question of healing our bodies and healing our minds, right? We all, as people of color, struggle with self-esteem issues. We have been speaking about generational dynamics. We have been historically, generationally fed a constant diet that we are less than. So I will say that we come by our self-esteem issues honestly. But for those of us who are conscious and we understand that that diet of being told that we're less than, we understand intellectually that it is a complete fallacy. We understand that, okay? So now I think the secret to the basis of turning those dynamics around in terms of how we feel about ourselves and having how we feel about ourselves be reflected in the way that we live our lives. That starts with situations like this. Communication, 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 communication. So all I can say is, when I think about the retreat that you guys are arranging, they're the kinds of instances, they're the kind of events that can start to turn those situations around. And I will say, as I've said to anybody who will listen, men are equally as in need of this kind of communication and this kind of healing. But it's up to us, the men, to take that in hand and take responsibility for our own physical and mental and psychological wealth. From the standpoint of somebody like yourself and Jackie Campbell putting together a retreat for women, that's where it starts. For me, it's all about communication all the time. We must communicate and talk to each other about our issues. I was asked a question about how we as Black people change our stories. And my answer is relatively simple. We have to take control of our stories. And arguably, it is more difficult to take control of our stories when you work in my industry, because we don't control, for the most part, the means of production. However, this is another area in which young people such as yourselves, have an added responsibility and an added opportunity. Because I would say that arguably, young people are less imprisoned than older people of my generation by dynamics of the past. The stories are out there to be told. The man and women power are there. We have the creativity. Nobody questions the creativity. So I think in the final analysis, if we are asking ourselves the question, how do we change our stories? It comes down to we must control our own stories. We must control our own narratives. Once we take responsibility for that, then we start to put the pieces together in terms of how we actually disseminate those stories and share those stories with the world.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the way that you poured into me and poured into this conversation.
God bless you.
Thank you, and I love your work and the intentionality of what you do behind the characters and the depth that you put into everything you do. It shines.
God bless you.
God bless you, and I think this was an amazing interview. I hope you have a wonderful day.
God bless you too. Thank you.